Cardinals and Nationals tonight. It'll be Jordan Montgomery, who's just been terrific for the Cardinals with a 1.47 ERA so far. He'll be faced by Corey Abbott, who's got a 4.39 ERA. Cardinals made a move today, probably heard it by now. I don't know much about it other than to tell you that ALEC Dickerson is up. Dylan Carlson is on the 10-day IL with a sprained left thumb. And ALEC Burleson is also in tonight's starting lineup, which is Nootbaar in right, Donovan is the DH, Goldschmidt at first, Arenado at third. Actually, I had that wrong. I don't know what I'm talking about. Let me start over. I'm being a kind of a knucklehead today. So the Cardinals have placed Dylan Carlson on the 10-day IL with a sprained left thumb. They purchased the contract of ALEC Burleson, their AAA slugger from Memphis, who was a second-round pick in 2020. And they designated outfield Connor Capel for assignment. They also announced that right-handed pitcher Junior Fernandez has been claimed by the Pittsburgh Pirates after being designated for assignment Monday. I'm not quite sure I understand why the Cardinals, it was like one bad performance, and it's like, hey, Junior Fernandez just can't pitch for us. After Junior Fernandez had been pretty good, but he did allow a lot of hair to runners to score. Whatever. I mean, can't sweat all these moves. So let me get back to the lineup. I promise I'll do it straight and not screw it up. Nootbaar in right field, Donovan DH, Goldschmidt at first base, Arenado in third base, Corey Dickerson in left field, O'Neill in center field. Gorman had a real good game last night. He's back in there at second base. Molina is the catcher, and Edman is the shortstop. So, Jim, did I do that without screwing it up this time?
You got it down. So.
I think I was renaming ALEC Burleson. I wanted to rename him Dickerson for some reason. So, anyway.
It's funny because David Solomon was mentioning Dickerson to me. He goes, who would have guessed that we would have been going, man, good thing Corey Dickerson's around because he is some kind of hot bat for the Cardinals right now.
He really is. In fact, I got a note on that, believe it or not. You know, I think I'm just saying like he's channeling Tony Gwynn because he's got a Tony Gwynn like batting average and even a style of hitting. And no, I'm not saying Corey Dickerson is the new version of the late great Hall of Famer Tony Gwynn, one of my favorite players. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying he's been pumping out base hits all over the place, just like Tony Gwynn did for so many years. In fact, with 2 more hits last night, Dickerson's hitting .379 since he returned from the IL on July 9th. And then if you go back to August 11th, he's hitting .458.
Oh, my goodness.
I know, right? .458. Now, you were talking 60 plate appearances, but
still,
so what? That's a .458 batting average, man. And the .379 comes with 107 plate appearances. So it's not like we're talking 17 plate appearances. So he's been one of the, the quieter, prominent stories. A story can be prominent for its importance, but quiet because it gets overshadowed to an extent. Because the Cardinals have a lot of big, big stories. Pujols going for 700. Final year of Pujols and Molina. Molina and Wainwright trying to set the record for a pitcher-catcher battery, most games together. They'll tie that Thursday. You got Goldie going for the Triple Crown. I mean, you got the two, you got Arenado making spectacular plays every other day, it seems like. And there's just been so many things to talk about, and really all of it good. These two trades for these pitchers that have changed the season, Quintana and Montgomery. And then you have Corey Dickerson with his, his .458 batting average since August 11th. It's like very prominent, very helpful to the Cardinals. They needed it. You got a little turmoil in the outfield. They traded away Bader, which is fine. Carlson's wasn't hitting. Now he's on the IL. And you're right. You guys back in the Friendly Sports Bar and Grill studio, right. It's funny to look at Corey Dickerson now and say, he's one of their most important players. Imagine if they, as you guys said, imagine if they didn't have him with some of the stuff that's been going on in the outfield. That's absolutely correct.
He was practically gone after the first 2 months of the year. You're like, oh, he's got to go. He could not hit his way out of anything, and it was like they got to get somebody else up here. He had that calf issue, and most people are going, well, that's good. He's off the roster now. Give these other guys their opportunity. And since he's come back, you gave those numbers. They are unbelievably impressive.
They are. They're great.
So, good stuff.
As for ALEC BURLESON, we were on a campaign here on the Bernie Show, pretty aggressive campaign. I didn't shut up about it for like a week. I know Jim Hewer agreed with my my sentiment. We were saying, you know, this is sort of tying into Corey Dickerson. When the Cardinals were getting nothing against right-handed pitchers from their DH spot early in the season, and ALEC BURLESON was just dominating AAA Memphis. And, you know, he's 23. And, again, he's not just some schlub. I mean, he was a second-round pick 2 years ago, and he was putting up massive numbers. And we were like, well, why wouldn't he be here? They were struggling a little bit offensively. They needed a DH against right-handed pitchers. They were playing the usual, you know, let's face it, service time games. And that happens. That doesn't only just happen here. It happens with just about every team. But anyway, I tell you what, you know, you look at the season he's having. I mean, it's a well-deserved, even if it's belated, it is a well-deserved promotion. Because at Memphis, 109 games this year, 432 at-bats, 331 batting average, a nice on-base percentage, about 37%, slugging 532. So he's got a 905 OPS, 25 doubles, 20 homers, 87 runs batted in. And he's kind of a cool rider. I mean, he doesn't have a tremendous amount of strikeouts, and he will take some walks. So even though he's a big, burly guy that really does have a lot of power, this dude has struck out at AAA this year, Jim. He has struck out only 14% of his plate appearances. I mean, in this day and age, especially for a power hitter, that's kind of amazing, actually. I don't care whether it's AAA or not. You know? I mean, look at Nolan Gorman, who I love, and I'm so glad he got going again last night. But we all, I believe, I mean, the people that accept that it's no longer 1966 understand, you know, for the most part, not always, you know, younger players who have the power game, who are prospects or young major league players because they have immense power potential. We all have made a deal, just about all of us have made a deal, and say, well, if he strikes out 28, 30% of the time, as long as he's hitting for power, that's okay. Well, Burleson's an interesting guy. He's an interesting dude because he's got power. He's got a 532 slugging percentage, AAA, and yet he only strikes out 14% of the time. I mean, that's just, man, that's unusual stuff right there. It really is. A big, burly guy who can hit the ball a mile, yet he'll sit there and take pitches. He's not going to chase your stuff, and he's going to get a pitch to hit. He's going to wait. He's patient. He's really good. I'll be curious to see how much they'll give him a chance to play, and I'll really be curious to see what he'll do when he gets his first extended opportunity.
I'm excited to see that opportunity as well. I have not watched a whole lot of his at-bats or some of his highlights, but I'm just really intrigued, and you gave numbers why. I mean, he's not a strikeout guy.
Not at all.
You know, and that's impressive in this day and age of baseball. And the fact that he gets the call up over Yepez intrigues me even more. And I'm not – they're different players. But the fact that Yepez has been here before, he's been hitting pretty good down there, but he didn't get the call. It's Burleson who gets the call. It tells me Cardinals realize his numbers are legit. He looks like he's going to be a legit bat because you don't really – I don't know. I wouldn't think you would want to call a guy up here if you were uneasy about him coming up here and being able to contribute when you're trying to win ball games and finish out the season.
Yeah, Yepez is an interesting guy because, 11 home runs, slugged 457 this year, and OPS plus over 100, I think by about 17 points or something like that. He's above average. But he got into some bad habits as far as his plate approach. Mm-hmm. He would start pulling off balls and, just kind of lunging at stuff, getting a little too aggressive, just out a little out of control with his swing. And judging by what Marmol has said a couple of times, when it appeared that it was maybe time for Yepez to come back up, when they were extending the roster to 28. And even earlier this week, for some reason, Yepez's name came up. And Marmol alluded to the fact that, they don't like his swing right now. He's just got to sort of get back under control. So I think that has a lot to do with it,
Mm-hmm.
I think he's got a future. No, there's no doubt about it. He did a lot of good things when the Cardinals were lacking offense earlier in the year. But, it's time to give someone else a turn. I mean, they just like Dakota Hudson, man.
Yeah.
It's no difference. I mean, they told Dakota Hudson, look, go down there and you got to get a couple things straight. Go down there and make the best of it. Get yourself right. You know what you have to do. Now do it. And lo and behold, Dakota Hudson, they got his attention finally. Something penetrated that brain pan of his because he goes 8 2/3 last night and pitched great down in Memphis. And I know it's Memphis, but so what? You either pitch well or you don't. So he may have gotten a wake-up call when they sent him down. And Yepez apparently just needs a little more time to sort of get it as far as what they want him to do while he's down there. They apparently are not to the point where they're pleased with what he's doing. And listen, man, we gang up on players in this town. It's amazing to me. New York and Boston and Philly have a reputation. St. Louis is underrated in that regard. When we decide to gang up on somebody, I mean, we go full Wolfpack. I mean, usually it's pretty stupid, but it happens a lot. So I'm sure there'll be some Wolfpack action with Yepez now. Oh, Bernie says he's out of control. He must be running around in them bars. No. Out of control in the batter's box. His swing is crazy. He's got to become more disciplined at the plate again. That's what I'm talking about. It has nothing to do with anything other than that.
It's going to be an interesting watch. Again, back to Burleson, and now you mentioned Hudson's numbers last night. I don't foresee him getting that chance again until the 17th when they play that doubleheader, but he's got that chance to work on what they've been trying to get him to do all year. It's been pulling teeth with him to get him to throw strikes, quit walking guys, and keep himself out of trouble. There's no doubt in my mind, Bernie, his stuff could pitch here and he could be a part of a rotation. He's just got to get over that mind block that's going on in his brain. He could be a fourth or fifth starter on your rotation. But until he gets that part of it, he'll never be able to survive in this league. So he's lucky he's in a situation, Bernie, where the Cardinals now can afford to send him down instead of just running him out there and ruining him and going, yeah, we're going to have to release you and you're done. So good stuff for him to get that opportunity.
Jim, you may have that screen in front of you. I don't here at my home Friendly Sports Bar and Grill studio. But you were telling me that the Brewers were losing again today at Colorado. Is that correct?
It is now 7-0 Rockies.
All right. They listen. To me, the collapse of the Brewers is an interesting story. It's an obviously a relevant story to in St. Louis because the Cardinals are in the process of running away with his division. And July 30th just wasn't that long ago. I mean, it really wasn't. We're talking the end of July. It just was not that long ago. The Brewers led the Central by 4 games. Now they're 8.5 back. And that's a swing at 12.5 games in 37, 38 days. And that's pretty amazing. And so last night they had one of their worst losses. In fact, they said it was the players said, I think Yelich said it. It was like their worst loss of the season. They were up. What were they up 7-1?
I think so.
And lost 10-7. They had a 5-run 8th inning lead, and then it all just went up in flames. So, Perdomo allowed 4 runs without recording it out. Streletsky, or whatever his name is, gave up the tying run in the 10th. Taylor Rogers gave up a 3-run homer to Randall Grichuk, and final 10-7. Yelich said that sucked. He said it happens fast here. Everyone's well aware how quickly leads go away here. It was one of those nights. We've had a lot of them in the last few months. Every couple days there's been a heartbreaking loss. And so he said that, and then a lot of these guys were just bemoaning the fact that they let this one get away, and you cannot let it get away. And it was really interesting, too, because Woodruff pitched 7 innings, gave up 1 run. Then he is their number 2 starter, and he is good. Not as good as last year, but he's good. And he had 91 pitches at the end of the set, or the top of the 7th, or the end of the 7th, 91 pitchers, and Craig Counsell opted to take him out. And then seems to me he probably could have gone another inning, but it all blew up when he left the game. So he was asked do you feel you could have gone back out there for the 8th? And Woodruff said, I had a feeling that question was going to come about, and trust me, I don't feel good about it. The last inning, I had a quick inning, right? The ball wasn't coming out necessarily as I would like, and I was kind of getting close to the end there. It's hard for me to answer because if we don't give up 6 runs and then you're not asking the question. That's a tough one. I was thinking about it in the shower. Obviously, the question is dictated on that 1 inning, and I really don't know how to answer it. He later on probably realized that he was second-guessing the manager without being blatant about it. And he said, honestly, it was the right time. I don't think you really believe that, Mr. Woodruff. I really don't. I think you thought, why did he take me out? But that's the kind of year it's been with the Brewers. And I got to say this, too. I really get tired of the narrative that, the trade of Josh Hader was the demise of this team. It led the Brewers straight to hell, and the players pouted and sulked, and they packed it in, and the general manager, the president of baseball operations, they basically ruined the whole team, ruined the morale, blah 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 blah. You know what? It was a factor, but I don't know why people can't talk about his last month at the Brewer. As a Brewer, Hader had an ERA over 12, and since he's been in San Diego, he's been just as bad. For some reason, he's completely lost or completely fried right now. So, okay, having him sitting in the clubhouse, maybe they would have liked to have had him as a teammate. They liked him personally. But he hasn't pitched worth a little handful of beans for a long time, since the beginning of July. So, listen, man, y'all can't just sit there and hang on that excuse for the rest of the summer and into the offseason, because you know what that does? That's kind of gutless, because what you're doing is you're taking yourself off the hook of responsibility. You're not holding yourselves accountable. You're making it's the front office. They made that trade. Well, they traded a guy who's a terrible reliever right now. Maybe he'll get it back, but he was a terrible reliever his final month in Milwaukee. He's a terrible reliever in his first month with San Diego, and that ain't the reason why you're 8.5 games behind the Cardinals. And that ain't the reason why you're blowing a 7-1 lead or a 6-1 lead, whatever that was last night. And it has nothing to do with the fact that you're getting run out of Coors Field again today. I mean, pony up here, man. Buckle up. Take responsibility for your play.
It's interesting with that whole situation, Bernie. If the Brewers would just be okay and in this race a little bit, people will be saying, man, the Brewers really fleeced San Diego right now. That trade, the Hader's useless.
They did, right?
Yeah, and they're not talking it that way. It's all, oh my gosh, Hader would be just as bad with Milwaukee. They would not be able to, like you said, last night, the 8th inning, the bullpen gave up 5 runs. Then they gave up the lead again in the 10th after Milwaukee took a 1-run lead, and they got a walk-off. By the way, both home runs, one in the 8th and one in the 10th by Randall Grichuk. And this is after Christian Yelich led off the game with a 499-foot home run to start that for them yesterday. It's, like you said, it's just an excuse. They're just not playing good ball. And David Solomon mentioned Eric Lauer's been taken out of the game today.
Oh, yeah, thanks, Sully, because I saw your note, and I haven't gotten to it yet, so thank you, yeah.
And now they're down 7-0 in the after 4 innings again to Colorado. I mean, that's on them. You just can't say, oh, this and that. I'm with you on this one.
Yeah, and the Cardinals rotation has been improving since the trade. Okay, They had the bad series in Colorado, just as pretty much everybody does. But since that series in Colorado, the Cardinals have the 5th best starting pitching ERA in baseball. And so we're talking about 24 games since then. And they've just been getting better all along. And, the bullpen set up nicely. I was concerned about the bullpen, but there's some really positive things going on down there, including Jordan Hicks, who's turned it around, who was just awful for about a month, and he's turned it around. And, tip of the cap to him. Helsley continues to be great. You got a smart manager who has utilized these guys properly, unlike the previous two managers. He didn't burn Helsley out. He hasn't burned Gallegos out. He's making sure that Gallegos, a rested Gallegos, is a highly effective Gallegos, unlike the guy who's wearing down. They pivoted from, Genesis Cabrera, plugged in Jojo Romero. I mean, they've made valuable use of Chris Stratton, who came along with Quintana from Pittsburgh. I mean, Woodford's a positive addition to the bullpen. What I was saying about Hicks, last 5 appearances, nothing, no runs, no walks, a few hits, and a bunch of strikeouts. And he's throwing that slider. You know what he was doing, and I'm rambling now because I'm going all over the place, but I spent too much time digging this up today. I was curious, well, what's changed? You know what's changed? When he was going through that bad stretch when his ERA was over 10 for about a month, Hicks would always start hitters off with his sinker. It was like a 70% first pitch was the sinker.
Mm-hmm.
And those guys knew that he didn't throw it for strikes. He's trying to get ground balls. They laid off of it. So he's down, 1-0 in the count over and over and over again. He kind of digging himself a hole. Well, he made an adjustment because since over these last 5 games, he's starting off at bats by throwing the slider. And he's thrown the slider over the last 5 games, his appearances. We're talking about the first pitch of an at-bat. He has thrown the slider by a much larger percentage than he was before, the first pitch. And he has thrown that first pitch slider during this hot streak. He's thrown strikes like 70% of the time. And they can't hit it. And they get down in the count. And then he's got him where he wants him. So, sometimes it's as simple as making an obvious adjustment. And he made it. Maybe he made it because Maddox was telling him. I don't know. But he made an adjustment. And he broke the pattern that major league hitters had come to expect from him, and a pattern that they would take advantage of. And he's now sort of gone backwards, or he's flipped it around. His best pitch is that slider, and now he's throwing it on the first pitch over and over and over and over again, and they swing and miss and swing and miss and swing and miss, or it's a called strike. During this time on those first pitch sliders, he's getting a whiff swing rate of 80%. So, I mean, look, people sometimes say, oh, Bernie, numbers. Well, I just thought y'all might want to know why Jordan Hicks went from being like a helpless, hopeless reliever who was getting his back broken down. He couldn't get anybody out. He's walking people. They're teeing off on him. Now the last 5 times out there, he looks like one of the best relievers in baseball. I thought I'd kind of like to tell you, that's why I do this work, what the reason is for the turnaround. And I think that excites me to be able to find out, okay, what changed? What has changed? That's what's changed. And it's made a huge, huge difference.
It has, and I'm glad you brought those things up because we talked about it when he was struggling. It's like, this guy throws 100 miles an hour plus. Why can't he get swing and miss? Well, now he's getting swing and miss. You've seen it with some strikeouts finally, and it's like, there you go. There's your answer.
Yep.
Different approach.
It is, and that was a really key adjustment. Now, this doesn't mean he's going to continue to dominate, but, man, has he turned it around. So the Cardinals got a lot of good things going for him, and I branched off there because I was explaining, that the bullpens, the Brewers' bullpen is falling apart, except the one thing the Brewers players won't acknowledge is it was falling apart in a harsh way a good month before Josh Hader was sent to San Diego. Now, you contrast the Brewers with the Cardinals. The Cardinals front office makes a trade. 2 trades. They get Quintana and they get Montgomery. More on that in a minute, and after we come back from a break. And that kind of transformed their season. But you never heard any players whining. The only thing you ever heard, he delivered it in a very responsible, respectful way, was Nolan Arenado making the point that, that they could use some help,
Yeah.
and he was obviously talking about starting pitching. He didn't go nuts. He didn't pout or sulk. The opposite. He went out there and played his tail off. The Brewers pouting and sulking and using this as an excuse for their shoddy play, and want to blame the front office. They need to turn those fingers back, pointing to themselves, because this team's, if they lose today, they'll be 14-21 in their last 35 games, and in that they have a lot of losses to the Cubs, the Pirates, the Reds, losing a bad team. So it's falling apart. We're talking about them only because they were leading the Cardinals pretty recently by 4 games in the division, and the whole thing's been turned upside down. And now there's a big doubt, I think a big doubt, of whether the Brewers will even get that 3rd wild card spot.
I'm there with you. It looks more and more like San Diego's going to take that over. San Diego won in a walk-off last night to increase another game. We see it here today. Brewers well on their way to losing again, and guess what? San Diego gets the Diamondbacks again tonight in San Diego. So they're fading fast to just not even being a factor, where this playoff race is just basically for seeding within the teams that are in, and anyone else is looking on the outside. They're already eliminated almost to this point.